Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Abdi and I'm from Australia. I'm here in Australia, and with me here is Professor Oliver Duerr from Stuttgart, Germany, who's going to share his materials later. I get to start first, so I'm going to start now. All right. So the first part of this webinar, I will introduce you to what MonsoonSIM is. Perhaps many of you have heard of MonsoonSIM, and perhaps some of you haven't. So if you have, please bear with me. But if you haven't, hopefully it will be clear to you. So the basis of having this MonsoonSIM is the following, right? See, business process in theory is a very monotonous one. If you talk about theory, it's very hard to have this little, the little twist and turn that we see in a real life business. Okay, so in real life business, there's a lot of interruption. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of exceptions and so on. So that's why we have this. We teach business process using experiential learning, because we believe that it's more closer to the reality for the student. Okay, that's number one reason. Number two reason is, in the past we teach using this method. Yeah. So why teach like this when learning can be like this? Yeah. So in MonsoonSIM, we allow the students to learn in a more natural way. Yeah, like in a team, and they talk to each other, and they make mistake, and they try to discover things, they try to explore things. So this is how these are the three foundations that we develop MonsoonSIM. And the third reason is this, right? When you run MonsoonSIM, when you teach MonsoonSIM, you are not teaching just one subject. Okay, and because in real life it doesn't work like that, subject by subject. In real life it goes like this, right? Everything is all mixed together. You cannot expect your procurement person to be just talking about procurement without understanding the other departments' constraint and their problems. So therefore, these are the three reasons why we develop MonsoonSIM. Okay. Now, with MonsoonSIM, as a certified trainer, a certified facilitator here, you can configure MonsoonSIM into various business scenarios. All right. And then you let the learners learn in teams based on the scenario that you have created. So let's say this is week 1, you create this scenario. Week 2, you create another scenario. And week 3, you create another scenario. Right? So having MonsoonSIM is easy for you now because you are a choreographer, you are a director, a movie director. You just create the scenario and let them learn. Yes. And how do they learn? Right? They learn through step-by-step horizontal learning from left to right. I'll show you more later. I'll show you the detail this. So this is how they learn. Okay, from the beginners to intermediate to advanced. All right, the more they learn, the more they play the game, the more they learn. Okay, so they're learning by playing. They're learning by going through the systems, going through the competition, or going to a challenge. And that's how they learn, they pick up the knowledge. All right, and you here, you are the facilitator. You configure, and then you monitor their performance, and then you guide them, motivate them. So you become motivator, you become director, you become choreographer. Right? Instead of creating content. So the contents are all digitized here. So all you have to do is to, plan out the scenario for them. So that's what MonsoonSIM is. Okay, so let's take a look at the MonsoonSIM in more detail. There we go. We break MonsoonSIM into 13 departments: finance, procurement, retail, marketing, planning, e-commerce, warehouse, logistics, wholesales or B2B, production, MRP, maintenance, service management, HR. Okay, and then we digitize here. So these are the digitized micro concept. There you go. Such as cash on hand, operating expense, equity, lead time, discount, payment terms, etc., etc. So every business department has their own little micro concept. So we digitize them all, right, into this platform. We call it micro concept. And then we let the student learn left to right, horizontally, never alone, never one subject by one subject, but it's always integrated form from left to right. We call it horizontal learning experience. Okay? They always learn along with other departments. They always experience other people's problem. That's how they learn a business. So we package this into fun, exciting games, okay, or simulation. So for beginners, you learn the surface. Okay, so for example, for your student, if you only have 1 week per semester, then they will learn just the surface. But if you have 2 weeks per semester, then you'll learn more, right? Then they'll learn more. And if you have more weeks, if you have more time to give them, then they will learn even more. Okay, so they will learn, they'll pick up a lot of knowledge. Every time they run, they will have question. And when they have question, they will explore. And when they explore, they learn. You can even, as a teacher, selectively pick up what area you want to focus on, right? So you can do a uniquely configured game, but it's always on a horizontal learning model. Okay? So that is what MonsoonSIM is all about. Yeah? Once again, as a certified horizontal learning model from a very simple model to a more complex model. Now, you see these three little bubbles? I'm going to show you more what these are, yeah, in MonsoonSIM. First, let's talk about the environment management. You can set up the environment, you can set up the timing and the tempo of the game, of the challenge, or of the competition. You can set up the players, you can set up the teams, you can set up robots. So we have robots in the system which can play along with human or against a human. You have live chat, especially this is particularly, this is really good in the pandemic situation. We have sharing configuration. You can share your configuration with your colleagues. We have micro course that will take you step by step from a very simple business to a very large business. Okay, so you can follow just a micro course. You can follow along. And there's also virtual teaching assistant, what we call BOSS. So we have this at your disposal. So you as a facilitator, you can use any of this to help you teach. Now let's look at the next bubble. What are the things that you can simulate in MonsoonSIM? Or sorry, you can configure. What are the things that you can configure in MonsoonSIM? You can configure the customers. You can configure your suppliers. You can set the parameters for your product, or you can change the product. You can set your services parameters. You can set the attributes for your warehouse. You can set the attributes for a retail, and you can set your location, etc., etc. So these are all the things that you can set. Okay, let's go back again. And many, many more. Actually, we have a lot of things that you can configure. There's loans, there is this approvals process, and so on. Then we have the third bubble, is the simulation outcomes. So what is the outcomes that you can monitor and you can observe and you can measure? So here they are. You can monitor the KPI as they run the game. As the student run, you can monitor the progress. And from there, you can provide necessary guidance, right? If you see a certain teams having some trouble in certain area, you will know right away as a teacher because it's up there, you can see it, and then you can provide guidance. You can stop the game and say, team A, are you sure you're doing, have you monitored your cash situation? So you can provide guidance, right? accordingly. And you have this KPI target that you can set. And you also have the scoring metrics. So there's a lot of things that you can set and measure as a teacher. You can also set the data analytics access so that when after they play the game, you can allow them to access their data. And this is particularly good for students that want to start data analysis. In fact, all accountant must be data scientists now, right? People talk about data scientists, and the best way to develop data scientists is to give them data. And where is the good data to get, right? Today it's quite hard to get good data because all the data you get from census or you get from the public space, they are all public data that doesn't have much to do with what they're doing. But if you give them the game data, that the game data is related to their action and their reaction and the consequence of their actions. So by giving them the access to their own data, I'm sure the learners will be very appreciative. They look at the data with a lot of connection. They will look at it very, very preciously, and they know how to, they will learn how to, find what is the problem with their business through their data. And then we have game reports. Okay, so just take a look at some of them. So you can set up the targets, such as your retail sales target. Okay, your target is 6 million, but right now you're achieving 820,000. You can set a target for net profit, space utilization, etc. So you can set all these targets, yeah? And then you can set the monitoring KPI, as we said earlier, right? You can set so you can monitor it as the player plays. And they can set you can set up to 10 metrics. For example, you want to measure cash on hand. So these are the performance. You can set the net profit. These are the performance and so on. Okay, and then you can tell who is doing better in, let's say, net profit. Okay, so this team is doing better. But in terms of production, this team is doing better. Okay, and then you can combine them to give them an overall score. Then you have this data live access as earlier. So this is MonsoonSIM. Okay, I hope at least this part you understand, right? So let's take a look at, some of the real life situations. So this is a university in Singapore. This is how they run MonsoonSIM. All right, so as you can see, in that video, the student, there's no teacher. The lecturer is not to be seen, right? So it's all the student, they are doing self-discovery, teaching, learning. And the teacher is actually standing at the back, watching their spirit, okay? Watching if they laugh or if they are, super excited, or if they make mistake, they probably want to have a restart and so on. So that's what the teacher is. So the teacher will look into the psychology of the student more so than the content, because the content is actually absorbed by the student as they play the game. Okay, so I want to share some of the things that people say about MonsoonSIM. So from Michigan State University, they were looking at, I can see using the SIM MBA as a way to introduce students who have limited business background tasks to integrate require in the business setting. Okay, so he's actually looking for the tool for a long time, and he loves the analysis part. So these are some of the good things that people say about MonsoonSIM. And then from San Diego State Universities, and so on and so on. There's a lot of them. Okay, and there's a published paper by University of Technology Malaysia by Dr. Shah, who is actually here with us today. This is the publication. And then there's another publication that's also from Hong Kong UST, and there's also recommendation from Deakin University, and so on. Okay, so that's the very brief introduction of MonsoonSIM. Now, let's dive into the game itself. So, This is actually a live game that all have just been completed. Okay, so because before this webinar, I found a live club game that is being played by a number of these people. In fact, they have just completed 100 days. Okay, each day is 35 minutes, 35 seconds. So this is just a completed live game. So let's take a look at what they are doing, right? This is the club game, so it's public information. You can see the general modules. They can see they are turning on financial modules, procurement, retail, marketing, forecasting, warehouse. So they run all modules. Okay. And then they run, let's take a look at some of their, let's observe some of their performance. Okay. They are running these areas. So they are using the Southeast Asia configuration. So you can see that they have this location that they can set up, right? In Jakarta, Surabaya, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Manila, Kowloon, Denpasar. And you can tell the game, each team, what are they doing, what they are doing, right? For example, this team is setting up a retail store in this area, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this team has a large warehouse, 3,000 meters in Denpasar. Okay, so this team is having only 3 retail store and 1 warehouse. All right, and this team is having so many warehouse and so many retail store. Now you may ask, why do they pick Denpasar as their warehouse? Well, that's their decision, yes? See, because every business scenario is different, it's always different. So they have to make that strategic decision at that moment. Why? Is it because of price? Is it because of logistic? Is it because of the overall attributes of people in Denpasar? We don't know, but they have to make that decision. There is no fixed way to play MonsoonSIM. Every time, every game is different. Everyone will have to react to the changing environment, right? So we can observe this. Now we can also observe a lot of things as a teacher. We can observe a lot of things. For example, we can look at their cash on hand situation, and we can look at their overall sales, right? We can look at their retail sales, and then we can look at their, let's say, wholesale, the e-commerce sales. Then we can look at their services sales, and then we can look at their sales revenue accumulated. Okay, and then we can look at their things like their profit, net profit. Okay, so we can look at it half screen, and let's just take a look at this. Now, when it comes to cash on hand, this is their situation. That's their cash on hand right now. That's the cash on hand. That's the cash on hand. That's cash on hand. Okay. So you can see the cash on hand situation. Now, if you can also further. Sorry, I'm going to put half screen and not last day, and you will see the pattern. Okay, so if I want to look at their cash on hand, this is what their cash on hand is, right? So as a teacher, as a facilitator, we can sit here as they play the game. We can monitor live, right? And we can tell how is the student doing. Are they doing the right thing? Are they doing business, or are they having run into trouble? And we can look at their sales, for example, right? How is their sales? Now, from here, actually, there's a lot of story you can, they're telling a big story, right? Why is this guy's sales so much less than this guy's, right? So they must have their own reason, and the student will probably tell us after the game, yeah, we did that because we were probably too conservative and so on and so on. So the student will tell us why they make that decision. Okay, so that is something that you can monitor. Yeah, and then you can see their services. You can see their, and so on. And then finally, this is the most important, is their net profit, right? So this can become a very competitive game, because if they, if you care about the KPI, then obviously the students will be very competitive. And each of these you can download as a CSV, and you can open it in your Excel, right? So all of the data is there for you to do analysis, right? So this is a live game, right? So you can see and you can monitor their, let's say their profit and loss. You can look at the profit and loss and you can monitor here. Very simple one, right? Sales revenue, retail sales, cost of goods sold, trading profit, operating expense, net profit, and so on, right? And again, you can just download this and it will become something that you can analyze, or you can send it to the student as a homework. Okay, please analyze and so on. Right. Okay, so that's a couple of products, a report that I can share with you. Now, from the player's point of view, let's say I take one of these players. This, you can also see their screen. So as a teacher, this is particularly useful in a pandemic situation, right? Because using Zoom, for example, when I show the screen, it's actually in front of them. They're actually looking at a very clearly what I'm showing them. Instead of in a classroom where you have a projector, sometimes it's too far for the student to see. But here in Zoom, actually it's really, really easy, because then you can just, show them this, right? And they can see exactly what you're seeing in front of them. So it's a lot of things that help them in terms of, teaching, because you also have a chat room, remember, that you can chat with them. So this is what the student is facing when they run this game. Obviously, these guys are very, very senior people. They already run this game a few times. So they've gone through all the 13 departments. So they know this. That's why they're turning on all the modules. So it looks complicated, but it's actually quite easy, right? You go step by step, okay? So it does look a bit, a lot. What is this? Finance and so on. But there's just a lot of things that they can see from here as a student. They can look at their average cost and so on, right? For those who like accounting, you can teach accounting very simply from here, right? You can pick up any student's report and you can say, okay, let me take a look at your profit and loss. And here's your profit and loss, right? And then you can say, okay, well, normally there's a accounting period of 10 days. So, okay, let's set it 10 days. So now you have your profit and loss in the, 10 days accounting period. Okay. Let's say you want to teach cash flow. This is easy. So this is because this is their data, right? So you started with, 2.5 million, and then you end up with 15 million. Right? Along the way, this is what you have done. You have a net profit of 20 million, but then you spend on depreciation this much, your inventory this much, and so on, so on, so on. You explain, and then they end up with 15 million. You can cross-check this 15 million into the balance sheet and to see that, yes, your cash on hand is 15 million, right? And of course, in here, in the cash flow, you can always set the accounting period also. Then you can explain to them why you start from 5.3 million and how does 5.3 million ended up to be 10 million. Okay. And then you have to go through all this. So this is an excellent way to teach people accounting, report and accounting and the debit credit. And you can also go to the trial balance, and then you can you can really drill down on all this. Where do you spend your cash on hand? Cash on hand is being spent on account receivables, human resource, salary, and so on. When is it debited? When is it credited? Okay, so these are all the drill down. You can drill down. So again, this is students' data, and students are supposed to have a connection with the data because it's their consequence, it's their business, right? As a CFO, they should know this data. So this is how the student learn. And again, as I said, this is just a live game that I have shown you that they have run. Let me see if I can find another live game that is currently going on. Let me just pick up another live game. If I can find them, I'll be happy to share it with you guys. Oh, session timeout. Let me take a look at the live game. Okay, there's currently a few live game going on. Nope. So, okay, so the next live game will be in 15 days. This is 16 days. The next Okay, the next live game will be in 5 days, 11 hours, 26 minutes. And people will come in and join this game, right? Okay, so this is what MonsoonSIM is. We have clubs, we have leagues. They can run the clubs, they can run leagues. The students, when they create the game, let me see if there's any other game currently going on. There's another game going on currently live. Okay, 2 players, 2 teams, and 10 players, right? So let's take a look at their game situation. It will be also full modules, right? And these are 2 teams. Then they're currently executing, okay, on day 30. So this is what they're doing, right? So you can take a look at their data. This is what they're going through, right? So, and they're setting up their store, and this is where they warehouse all this logistics, and their transaction and so on. I mean, again, for those who knows MonsoonSIM, I mean, this is not unfamiliar to you at all, right? But for those who have not seen MonsoonSIM, this may look a little bit, wow, there's so many data, but but when you start MonsoonSIM, it actually start very simple with 2 modules, 3 modules, 4 modules, and so on. Okay. So that is my presentation for MonsoonSIM, a short introduction. By the way, for those who have not seen MonsoonSIM, we are going to have a certification training for level 1. You're welcome to join. We're going to announce that for attendees for this day, for today's participant. We are going to make that announcement. So if you are not, let's say you somehow come in without registering, please let us know your email so that we can invite you for this certification, level 1 certification. Okay, and that is part of the train the trainer. It's almost the same. It's less modules. Okay, so I will open it to questions at this point. Anyone has any question? You can ask the question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just talk it out.
We will be recording this, right? So Abdi?
Yes.
So for those who come late, we can send them the recording, what they missed, right? Later.
Right. Okay, good. Yes, there will be a recording. How much does it cost? It is quite affordable. We'll send you the information. Anthony, may I know your email? Could you send us your email? Then we'll send the information to you. It's very standard. It's very, what do you call that? Generally acceptable. It's quite affordable. That's for Anthony, right? Can you send us your email if you'd like to know more? Who else has any question? Dr. Shah, you have any question? Okay, from Kirby, how are business events generated in the SIM? Are there also issues that are pre-set up for the student to solve? Okay, good question. The business event is something that you can, so okay, all the if business events are all triggered by the system. Basically, for example, who will come in and buy, right? So let's say let's suppose, okay, let's just quickly go through a game. You just if you like to, you can set up the scenario. So if I let's say create a game here, this is a game that I did earlier. Okay, so this is the game. Now there is this prepackaged courses that you can use. This is called micro course. So let's suppose I want to run retail business 1 today, right? I can either configure myself, or I can just use a prepackaged course. These are all the prepackaged courses for you. Retail business 1, retail business 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now here you can simply click this, and then go through the course material that's already presented, that's already created for you. So all you have to do is to present this in front of the student. So you tell them that, okay, we are going to run 101 for this course. And what is 101? This is the product. So you start by explaining what the product is, you explain the location, and then you explain that these are the 3 modules that are covered in this course. And then you tell them the process. Okay, for example, you send a PO from a procurement to your vendor, and the vendor will produce, and then you store it in your store. What are the things that you have to think about? You have to think about how much to buy, which vendor, ship to which store. So these are the trigger point. These are the critical thinking that the student must go through when they play the game, right? So it's all here in the materials. For example, in the retail, when you start selling your juice to the consumer, you need to think about what is the optimal selling price? What is a popular product among the 3 products, right? What is the cycle stock? How often do you stocked out? And what is the area utilization? So these are the things that you need them to think about. And in the finance side, then you think about how much is your sales, right? You can look at in your profit and loss and what is your expense and your profitability and your sales and how your expense are booked. So it's all here in this package, in this wizard. So all you have to do is to click here and run this course. So if I want to run this course, I just stop the game that I have now and I just come up this game, run this course, right? And I'm going to pick Australia, USA baseline, and then I trigger this, and I go through the setting up of the system, and I set the KPI, and that's it. So now I'm running this course. So I'm here running this course, ERP 101, right? And they can, if I run this course, if I run this, then the system will be running. For those who haven't seen MonsoonSIM, the student will be playing, and they are going to compete under this scenario. Now, when I'm done with this, I can go to the next scenario and I can run this course. And I'm done with this, I can go to the next and run again. So we have a lot of pre-packaged course for you. All you have to do is to click and run. It's all comes. So the contents are all pre-packaged for you. All you have to do again is to just pick which one you want to run, and then you monitor, right? And of course, we'll train you how to do that. We have this training, a one-day training that we can send out to you, and we'll let you join and train you up for this. Okay, any other question?
Can you check the chat? I saw 2 questions just now.
Okay. Can I know where the strategic part of this game? I'm thinking about postgraduate student who may be executive or higher level. Is there service industry scenario? Okay, I take one by one. Okay, can I know where the strategic part of this game? Okay, the strategic part game is to achieve their KPI. As I said earlier, if you go through the material that I've gone through just now, there are things that they need to ponder, and these are the things that they need to think about, right? Because every game is different. They have to think about how they beat or compete with the other guys. So they have to start strategizing. Because remember, it comes in a team, so they need to talk about it. How are we going to play the game? If you go to YouTube, there's a lot of students sharing what is the strategy on MonsoonSIM, and everyone is different, right? If you go to Monsoon, there's a lot of people sharing the strategy. I'm thinking about postgraduate student who may be executive at a higher level. Is there service industry? The answer is yes, there's service industry. We talk about manpower planning. We talk about service bidding. We talk about service quotation handling and so on. And also tie very, very closely to human resource, because service industry is actually very, very human dependent. So yes, we have service industry. And postgraduate, yes, we have a lot of postgraduate, like the one in Chicago, sorry, not Chicago, but the Michigan Business School, Michigan State, they are using it for the postgraduate MBA. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Any other question? How the business generator? Okay, I've answered that. Other issue with the pre-setup for the student. So the pre-setup student issue will have been solved by this, right? So there's no pre-setup. The student just come in and just run the game. There's nothing to download. There's no app. There's no things to download to their computer. They can walk into any cafe and open up any laptop and run a browser, and that's it. They can play the game. Okay. So that's the infrastructure. All right. So any other question? I'm open to, let's say, 2-3 minutes of question, then I'll hand over to Oliver.
Can you check? I think there's another question for you, Sir Abdi.
Okay. Okay. It's a package sold per head or per institution. We have two models. We can do a per head model or we can do a per institution model. So per institution then you can have unlimited student playing, but it's just limited by a concurrent numbers. So that means it's concurrent. Okay. So that's a per institution model. The per head model is so straightforward, right? Each person is $36. That's it per year, right? So that's something. When will but you know, if you have if your school has a lot of students, then you probably for the per institution a lot cheaper. Okay. And by per head, it's also very affordable. It's almost like a few cups of coffee. Okay, when will the recording of this session be available? By tomorrow, it will be available. We can send it to you. So please leave us your email just in case. Since these are group activities, how do you make sure that every students are contributing? Very good question. Okay, so we will be able to monitor who has done what, right? So for example, in here, you can be able to tell, you know, what are who's the student doing what transaction, right? So you can search this, and this data will in our currently we are measuring on a team, but then we are going to have this result. So you can see this quiz. Okay, if you save your current session, let's say I save this session. Now you can see it's score by quiz here, and here will tell you the individual score. Okay, so you can have a quiz. You can have quizzes. All right, and the quizzes will be tied to this. Every course has a quiz, and once you run the quiz score will be individual. It will be stored here, and then so you have a group score as well as an individual quiz score. So how you're gonna you know, come up with your total score? That's every school has a different metric, so it's up to you. Okay, so every session that you save, you see the profit and loss, you see the balance sheet, you'll have the score by metric, score by target, and score by quizzes. Okay, so that's where you start developing your individual score. And then we also have, this is coming up, we also have activity, school individual activity, like what are their role that they're playing, and this is coming up. Okay, we have not got it, but we will be rolling it out also, and it will appear here in this column. Okay, any other question?
Okay, answer to the SAP ERP by Sir L. Sir Abdi, you see that question?
Okay, can I see? Okay, it's MonsoonSIM. How is this different from ERP SIM? Okay, ERP SIM is, we are not actually Apple. ERP SIM is one of the, what do you call it? They are probably more in terms of using a product, because it's actually developed based on SAP. So it has this SAP, but when you talk about SAP, you try to build a SIM out of SAP. It's really difficult, because actually, I know, because I am one of the ERP SIM instructor. So I know, because the underlying integratedness of SAP is tight. Therefore, it's very difficult for them to evolve. So when you talk about functionality, it's totally different now, right? When we were in 2014, probably we are almost the same, because we have this trading, and they have this trading, and there's this serial and all that. But at this point, it's already different. We're not even the same thing anymore, right? So we have gone our way, and they're going to the product way. That's why we refuse to work with any other product, because otherwise we'll be tied to the product constraint, right? How they set up the master data for SAP, how to do that. Now that in itself is a very tight and very structured way, right? But when it comes to MonsoonSIM, it's applicable to all products, okay? So the student learn the concept. We never learn how to enter, what is the T code, what is the limited, or what is the, you know, we have to go through the SAP way. There's no such thing. So when it comes to turning a concept, the concept here is applicable to all products. So what you develop from here, you can apply it to Oracle, you can apply it to Microsoft Dynamics, you can use it to SAP. Doesn't matter, right? Having said that, SAP knows MonsoonSIM very well. In fact, SAP has been a strong sponsor of MonsoonSIM for the last 5 years of competition. Okay, so it's not the same product. In fact, if you look at this presentation, actually, Dr. Severin is actually, this is what he said, right? I'm also looking forward to using SIM in my every class in place of the SAP SIM. So he was actually using SAP SIM, ERP SIM for a long time. I mean, normally I don't want to talk too much about this, but now that since you asked, I want to highlight this, right? So same thing with Penn State. Penn State used SAP SIM, ERP SIM, but now they're using MonsoonSIM also because it's not the same product if you look into it. Okay, any other things? Oh, I forgot to mention the data analytics side. Okay, so we have the data analytics here, which you can create the what do you call that? You can create the live data access, and then you can set the access, and the student can then tap into that using the password and the database and the name, and there's a title. So anyone that study data analytics using R or using Tableau or using Power BI and using Excel, you can just tap into that using this username and password, and then you see the data. So this is how it's so simple, right? Where you run a game and then you give them the access, and then you mail the access to the student, right? You just mail them the credential to the student, and you say, here are your access. That's it. So they can then use the tool to tap into the database and come up with a report and submit it tomorrow as a homework, for example. Okay, so that's another thing that I can cover. Okay, Oliver, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
There you go, Oliver. Over to you.
Okay, so welcome. Good afternoon from my side. My name is Oliver Duerr. I'm a professor at University of Applied Sciences in Esslingen in the south of Germany. And I met Abdy 2019 at a conference of the American Accounting Association, and I participated in his MonsoonSIM presentation, and I really fell in love with MonsoonSIM and therefore used it in 2019 and 20 in my classes. And I would like to show you how I integrate MonsoonSIM in my management accounting class. Okay, so I will give you some information about the class and the teaching concept and some examples how the students worked with MonsoonSIM. So the course I used MonsoonSIM for is a 2 European credit transfer point system class. That means it's about 60 hours of workload for the students. It's a third year class in the bachelor's program in international industrial management. And we have 20 hours contact time with the students, 40 hours is self-study for the students. And they already had classes in cost accounting and management accounting in the first and second year. In the class, there were around 20 to 30 students. And last semester, I did that class completely online. I used Cisco WebEx to run that class. So the goal of this management accounting class is the extension and application of management accounting skills. The students have to prepare data-based decisions. So that refers to that decision facilitating function of management accounting. And they should develop data analytics skills using MonsoonSIM. So that means that they know which data are relevant for which decision to take, which connections exist between the data, and what is a cause and what is the effect and the outcome in their data. And that finally leads to the thing that posing right questions is becoming really relevant in business today, and management accountants, I think they have to pose the right questions. And that's quite easy to teach with MonsoonSIM. So as I said, I use MonsoonSIM in that class to create dynamic data. That means data that changes with the decisions the students take. I play it in teams of 5 students. And I did not use all the modules, all the departments Abdi showed us. I just had general, financial, procurement, retail, marketing, forecast, wholesale, B2B, and e-commerce. And I did run each round 60 seconds. And I played 4 sessions. So I did not play that game once, all the complete round. So I took 4 different sessions. And as a second tool, I use Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop to analyze the data. That's free with an academic license. Also, the students can download Tableau for their own laptops at home. So that's also free for them for 1 year. And they use these tools to prepare the data, analyze the data, and to also present the data using Tableau dashboard. And I did not teach them how to use Tableau. I just made them access to some video tutorials so they can self-study using Tableau. So I did not teach Tableau at all to them. Okay, so the concept is then I have 2 introductory lectures to the class. So one is just about organizational information, how they have to set up the teams, how they can access MonsoonSIM, and so on. And the second lecture is on data analytics, data presentation, balanced scorecard, and how to pose right questions. And I do not have a detailed introduction to MonsoonSIM. I think also that is not really necessary to teach how to use MonsoonSIM. I just have 2 slides in my first lecture. So that's the game code, how they have to access MonsoonSIM, and some general information. So about the products, about the stores, about what are warehouses, how much suppliers they have, and so on. But it's just 2 slides. And then I let them play the games. So I have some test games, so where they can explore MonsoonSIM, look around, what can I take as a decision. So that's here 3 times a test game I did with them. And also I gave them the possibility to participate in club games. So I had Sunday night, Monday night club games, and they could use these club games to become familiar with MonsoonSIM. So that was really very nice with MonsoonSIM, that you do not have to teach them 5 hours how to use it. It's really very intuitive as a learner. And then, as I said, I have 4 sessions. So in each session, I play with the students 25 to 50 rounds of MonsoonSIM. And after each session, I stop the game. And then students have 2 weeks time to collect the data from MonsoonSIM, to prepare the data, to analyze the data, and to develop a data story and prepare a dashboard that they have to present to me. And each group member has to present a part of their company. So that's the way I can handle the issue, that it's a group activity, and everybody has to participate, because everybody of the group has to present something of the data and the data story. Okay, so here I give you my semester plan of last semester. I started end of April, and it went through end of July. So you see the red dates are contact time dates, and the blue ones were coaching time, where I was available via WebEx to answer questions and so on. And after each round, they had coaching time and have them to present their dashboard and their data story to me. Okay, so the skills. So I think it's a good combination of the dynamic data created by MonsoonSIM, data analytics with Tableau, and a gamification in learning. So students like very much to learn by playing a game, and that's here in MonsoonSIM. They like it very much. It's a very easy access just with their browser. It's very easy to learn and understand. They do not have to read 500 pages of a book to understand MonsoonSIM. They just log in and try out. It's a very stable game environment, so I never had some issues with MonsoonSIM, and it's very easy to access the data. In version 8, there are analytics incorporated in MonsoonSIM. Last semester, I did use the old version, and you can just download all the data as a CSV file. The skills they acquired is that they become a feeling of what decisions are the most relevant decisions to take and what are decisions that are not that relevant. And then they ask themselves, which data do I need to take a very well-grounded decision? So they also learn what factors really drive the performance of their company, what is really relevant. For example, if net profit is the target, what drives net profit? What KPIs are relevant for net profit? And the basic skill also here is that they learn what are the roots and what are the effects, what are the outcomes. And they use Tableau to visualize these roots and effects in a balanced scorecard. Okay, so in the chat there's a question about balanced scorecard. I will show that to you in a moment, how they did that. Sorry, going back. And they have to tell a database story and sell it to their CEO. So I'm playing a little bit the board, and they have to tell me their strategy using these data and the dashboards. Okay, the grading I did was based on the presentations. So each presentation date, each group had 10 minutes. And the grading was based on the structure of the presentation, the data story, and the decisions if they were based on the data. And the game performance were bonus points. So a team that performed very well in the game had additional points for the grading. Okay, so here are some of the examples of the students' presentations and slides. So here, for example, they looked at outliers. So you're in the graph, you see the orange curve, that's net profit. And here they look for outliers, so days, for example, day 67, 73, days with negative profit. And then they digged deeper into the data, analyzing what was the cause of that negative net profit. So was it a stock out, or was it a negative B2B margin, a bad deal they agreed to? And also they looked at extraordinary high profit, day 68, day 77, and they digged into what was the cause of that extraordinary high profit. And so that's an example for outliers. Then here is an example about price strategy. So here, so I have to be sorry, some words are in German because they did that in German. So you see here, the red one is the price in Berlin for melon juice. So that's the way they change their prices over time. The blue line is the average price of the competitors, and the light blue is the average sales over that time period. And you see here the price decrease over time, the red line decreases, and what was the effect on their average sales. And what they did not discuss at that point was, is it a price effect or a volume effect? So here they could also integrate the number of fruit juices they sell instead of only the average sales volume. Then here they have cost of goods management. Here you see for apple, melon, and orange juice, the cost of goods sold over time, and you see that decreased, and the students digged into why that price over time decreased, what was their strategy, how they behaved. And also here one group, you see that Excel file, they developed a tool to the supplier choice. So I allowed 3 suppliers, VFG1, VFG2, and vendor X. And depending on the volume they want to buy, they developed that tool that shows them what is the best supplier, the cheapest supplier to make the deal with. So here is then also an example of B2B management. In B2B, you have to bid for the deals, and what you see in a left upper chart is on red, that's the cost of goods, average cost of goods sold. The blue one is the own price the students bid, and the yellow is the winning or losing bid of the competitor. And you see here that from the 9th bid on, they are quite below the competitors. Before they were very close to them. So it seems that there is some room that they could bid a little bit higher and still win the bid. On the bottom, you see the difference of lost bids per competitor. So AA, BB, DD, FF, HH were the other companies, and you see here the difference to the other bidders on average. And on the right corner, you see margins. So the blue ones are B2B margin, the orange is retail margin, and the size is the volume of the deal. And you see how that developed over time. Were the margins stable or did the margins decrease? Okay, and then here store management, that's also very important in MonsoonSIM. And here one group thought about stock out events, very bad events, because you do not have something in the store to sell. And the blue one are the number of stock outs. And you see that the number of stock outs here decreased over time. And the green one are the sales volume. And you could combine that dashboard, for example, with floor space management, for which store I should increase the space, for which store I should decrease it, and also with supplier reliability, because in MonsoonSIM, not all suppliers are equally reliable. So some suppliers deliver on time, some suppliers deliver late, and you could combine these issues here of stock out with supplier reliability. Okay, and then I think finally here are an example of a balanced scorecard. I again have to apologize, it's in German. So on the left, it's finance, customers, processes, and potentials. And the green arrows are positive effects, and the red one are negative, relating to costs. And the overall goal here is maximization of net profit, because that was the target I gave to them. And then you can see here, increasing sales will increase net profit, increasing their market share will increase sales, maximizing supplier reliability will lead to a low number of stock outs, and that will increase market share, and so on. So that's how they developed that balanced scorecard. And here is a second example of such a balanced scorecard. It's a very unusual way to present it, because it's not these 4 parts of the standard balanced scorecard, but what the goal is that they think about what is the cause and what is the outcome and how that is connected. And that's the thing I wanted them to learn, what is really the basic decision and what's its impact on finally net profit. Okay, final slide here is on lessons learned. So the students very much liked MonsoonSIM. In the beginning, they had some problems coordinating their team. That's also something they learned, that they have to coordinate decisions. And during the test games, they very often had stockouts, and they learned how to deal with these coordination issues during the game. Second, the students knew what a balanced scorecard is, but they never really thought about causes and effects. And that's the main thing in that balanced scorecard. So they needed some time to think about what is the cause and what is an effect, but they had a substantial learning effect, understanding and applying a balanced scorecard. And finally, there was very high student engagement. They not really complained about the time they spent learning Tableau, doing dashboards, doing presentations. So there was very high engagement with MonsoonSIM and also with Tableau and doing dashboards. So students like games, they like gamification, and that's a very, very positive asset here also of MonsoonSIM. Okay, then I'm open to questions. Maybe I check the chat. Okay, alternative perspective on balanced scorecard, yes. Not only for strategic issues, but also for looking at causes and effects. I think that's also what is really important in a balanced scorecard. What is the outcome I want to achieve, and what decisions do I have to take to achieve these outcomes?
I have a questions. Rather than typing out, can I just ask over the platform? Can you hear me, Professor Oliver?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. So, a few questions. When you mentioned round, you play the game with round 26 to 16. What does it mean?
So totally, I set up the game with 150 days, but I did not play these 150 days at one date. I split it up. So I did session 1 about, I think, 25 days. So maybe let's go back and let's show me the semester plan. So I did not play these 150 rounds at once. So in the 6th of May, I played just 25 rounds, 25 days in MonsoonSIM. Then I stopped the game and let them collect the data and analyze the data. And then 3 weeks later, we restarted 27th of May and played on. And in the meantime, they had time to create dashboards, think about their strategy, and then maybe change their strategy and change their decisions to react to the other groups.
So the round means how many days they are running. Okay,
yes.
So
yes, rounds is days.
When you come to round 26 to 60, it basically built on what you have done in round 1 to 25. So it's not something fresh from beginning.
No. So it's the same game, but I stop the game from time to time. But it's the same game that goes on. So on day 26, you start with all the decisions you took on day 1 to 25.
Okay.
So I just stopped it in MonsoonSIM, and then I let run the game once again.
All right. I'm interested in your presentation of dashboard. What students are presenting on that dashboard?
So I showed you some examples of their dashboards. So basically, they started with net profit and were analyzing how the daily net profit developed. So as I showed you, are there some negative days? And then they asked, hey, why was there a negative profit on that day? What happened that day? And then they looked about supplier reliability, stock outs, and so on. And if I found an answer, for example, it was stock out because supplier was unreliable, then they take new decisions, maybe order 3 days earlier or change the supplier so that no stock out will happen and there will no negative profit in the future.
Okay. I'm moving towards the balance scorecard. So you have presented us a few sample of balance scorecard. So what you have looking for is not the true sense of balance scorecard, it's any format the student coming about. So you're not looking at internal growth or, you know, the fourth perspective of balance scorecard.
Yeah, so these 4 perspectives are the standard perspectives that you find in the original textbook. So the internal and learning and growth perspective would here be the last perspective that's called potentials, Potenziale.
Okay.
So sometimes it's named a little bit different, but I think Kaplan and Norton also mentioned that's one possibility how to look at these 4 perspectives. You could also use 5 perspectives or only 3.
Yeah.
So here it's the 4th one is potentials, they call it.
All right. Do you tie up the whole learning module with assessment?
Sorry?
Do you tie up the whole module with assessment? Like, does it count into their credit, exam, or something like that?
So I'm not sure if I did get the question right. So they for the grading they only do the presentations.
Okay, so the presentation will get marks, and they have to. So they sort of motivated to do a better job in the whole game, so that they can present something sensible and strategic or something like that. So marks are given for their presentation.
Yeah, so here the basic grading is on the presentation. So if they are good in analyzing the data, telling a data story, and then taking decisions based on the data. And the motivation for the MonsoonSIM game is if they perform well in the MonsoonSIM, they get additional points. And for each presentation, they do not get a mark, they get points. And I add up all these points, and in the end, the sum of the points results in a mark.
Okay.
And if you perform very well in MonsoonSIM, you get a better grade because you get bonus points.
Right. All right. Yeah. Thank you. I better leave some time for others participants to ask. If there's no questions, I'd like to ask: is there any challenges during this COVID-19 time in terms of technology for the student to play the game at home, or, you know, how to run it during this time?
So the students managed that very well. So most of the students, or all of the students, had access to a computer at home. So that was not a problem for them, and sometimes it even worked better than in class, because in class at the university, all the students used the computers there, and they all were using them at the same time, and that created some problems sometimes with the network infrastructure. And during COVID, when they were at home, it was, I think, even easier. They had some issues coordinating themselves, but that worked also very well.
Okay, and I believe this is cloud-based, so there is no problem whether it's a PC or Mac.
Yes, that was no issue. So some of them had Mac, some of them had PC running Windows. So for MonsoonSIM, it's browser-based, and I think also for Tableau there's also a Mac download. So there was no issue.
Okay, thank you.
How are students then studying other areas or topics when they are more excited in doing? Okay, so the students had the management accounting class 1 year before, where they learned basic concepts in management accounting. And yes, so during the game, they were really excited about MonsoonSIM, but that was really only the time when they played the game. And if you play 50 rounds, 60 seconds each day, so it's roughly 1 hour they play the game, and the rest of the time they really use the data and try to analyze the data and try to take well-grounded decisions, and how these decisions will affect their cash, how these decisions will affect their net profit and the competitors. So it was really only the game playing time where they were dedicated to MonsoonSIM. But when the game stopped after these rounds, I said, and they were really in balance scorecard, in KPIs and data analytics. So that was not a problem. It's limited to the gameplay.
It's more about general protection, data protection regulation in EU. How, because we are quite cautious in the institution when we come to public domain, people coming into a public platform concerning about their personal data and so on. So have you all thought about things like that?
So that's
Professor Oliver, this is Alex from MonsoonSIM Singapore.
Hi.
Yeah, I may want to take this question on behalf of you because this is related to MonsoonSIM.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, right. The gentlemen, I didn't get your name just now. By the way, do you mind that you address yourself and introduce your name and where are you from? Because basically I did not hear that just now.
All right, okay, sorry. My name is Abdy. I'm currently teaching in UK University, also majoring in management accounting. So I find this simulation package is very interesting and possible. I would like to use it with my students. But my institutions are quite stringent about copyright, privacy. So we talk about personal data. So in EU, we have these general data protections regulations. So I'm not too sure how MonsoonSIM has considered this aspect of personal data, or, you know, because it's cloud-based, you have your server. How are these data protection issues being dealt with in terms of at your end and at your corporate side?
All right, okay. If you allow me to just explain that, basically we open this platform primarily to educators, yeah. So obviously the main bulk of the learner will be the students, and every time they sign up in an account, we actually publish these rules which they have to accept before they sign up. Now, obviously, we did not actually use their data for any other marketing purpose. And in fact, in our terms and condition in part of GDPR, that we actually state and declares only with the acceptance that we will actually use this information. So primarily is for us to interact with them. And we did not actually collaborate with anybody, including Google or anybody. So this information is safe and secure in our database. And normally outsider will not be able to access that, and we will actually uphold as far as the usage of the information is concerned. Now, second thing here is that we do not take any of their private information, including their passport numbers or IC or anything. So basically, we only take up their names as well as email and contact number if they would like to provide. Is totally up to them to decide. So
Yeah.
in a nutshell, there wasn't any sensitive information being collected from them other than their names and which university they are from.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay.
Yeah, so there's another question concerning the management accounting concepts. So I do the MonsoonSIM in the 3rd year of the bachelor's program. So they're very close to finishing their bachelor's degree. So they had all the classes in marketing, in finance, in accounting before. So there's not really a lot that I teach them. I teach them something about data analytics and how to present data. And I also teach them something about balanced scorecard and KPIs, but there are no lessons between the games or between playing the games. So sometimes if I see something, what they do in the game, then I show that issue maybe to everybody, and we talk about that. Why is it happening that there's a stock out all the time or something like that? But there's not really a teaching of additional concepts. Only at the beginning of the lecture, data analytics, data presentation, BSC, and KPIs.
All right. Any other question from the floor?
Yeah, that was referring to the management context. Yeah, so that's the same question by Betty Jane Martinez. So in the 2nd year, they have a 4-hour lecture about management accounting with me. And there is covered topics like budgeting, cost volume profit analysis, performance evaluation, transfer pricing, production planning, and so on. And here, 1 year later, they have to apply these concepts. Also, the BSc is covered in that 2nd year class. So if it would be a standalone class and you have to teach all these concepts, then it will be much more complicated. But it's a on top class on a standard basic management accounting concept class. How many % of the class is spent for MonsoonSIM game? So 150 rounds, that's 150 minutes, that's 2.5 hours of the 60 hours workload. So that's roughly 5% of the time is spent playing the game. So it's not that much really playing the game. They spend a lot more time analyzing the data and then discussing what decisions do I take based on the data and how that affects then the next rounds played in MonsoonSIM. Yeah? So I think what is of value is that I stop the game. If I would just run the game 150 rounds, then I would have to do that more often, that they can learn something. But I decided to stop the game after some rounds, and then they reflect the decisions they did, analyze the data, and take maybe different decisions next time.
Professor Oliver, the way that you actually practice MonsoonSIM is very different from a lot of universities in Asia. Asia will actually give the student many rounds of 150s for them to practice and familiarize. So did you actually think of moving towards that option so that the student have more chance to deal with a real life problem? Because they may make a wrong strategy in the first 150 rounds, or maybe in between 150 rounds, and they would like to, take another strategy in the next one. Do you think of moving them towards like giving them more time, since it's only 5% of the time that you allocated? Do you think of allocating more for them in the future?
I did not think about that before, so I was quite happy with the time they had for that, and they already did that. So after maybe around 60, they said, "Oh no, our strategy was wrong. We will switch and change our bidding behavior, or we will change suppliers for round 61 to 150. So letting them play more than one game is an option. I have to consider this, but the way it is now, I can focus on other topics. So playing the game is the students like very much, but it's not the main focus that they play the game. So for me, it's the data analytics part. So therefore, I'm quite happy today with the 5% playing the game and 95% analyzing that dynamic data that is created by MonsoonSIM.
I totally appreciate that. And there's another question coming from Betty. The student enroll this class as an additional requirement or an elective subject? Can you take this question?
It's a mandatory class at the moment. So
okay,
it's not an elective, they have to take that class.
Okay, it's mandatory, Betty. So hope that answered your question. And how about topics related to capital budgeting? That's from Anthony.
So I did not use that last semester. I think therefore you would have to turn on more modules like production, where especially then you have to buy machines and so on. You could incorporate that. I did not do that because I wanted to keep the complexity handleable. So you could run MonsoonSIM with the complete complexity, but I thought, okay, I restrict the modules a little bit for the students to make it easier.
Okay, totally sensible. Thank you very much. Any more questions from the floor? So Professor Oliver, anything else you want to, word of wisdom for the rest of these educators? I think many of these are from educators. They are from different universities. Some are from Philippines, I think Australia's, and some other country, including Malaysia. So is there some advice you want to give it to them? Because many of them are actually, sort of trying to think a way of how to get the ball rolling. I think there's quite a lot of challenges for some of them because they are quite handful, number one. And number two is that they might have some what we call concern over the effectiveness of implementing the system. Will there be some sort of complaints and things like that from the students? Maybe you can shed some lights on that, and how do you take the initiative and how that works out in your environment?
Okay, so the second question was if the students had some problems and issues and complaints.
Yeah, something like that.
No, not really. So, so with the technical side, there was no issue. Everybody all the time had access to MonsoonSIM. That was no problem at all. So also no complaint about MonsoonSIM. The students liked it, yeah. So it was great for them to play it. And the first question was advice.
Yeah, well, I mean, how do you initiate the MonsoonSIM in your university? Because many of the other universities may have to go through some approval level within universities, and how do you actually expedite that process?
Okay, that was at my university. That was quite easy because I'm the dean of studies. So,
so you make the call basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had to convince the dean, however, and so because it's something I would call it simulation is not new, but you have that browser access. The students can access that from home. That's a very positive asset during COVID-19 that you can access with your smartphone, with your tablet. Everywhere you are, as a student, you can access MonsoonSIM, and you need not to be at the university. And that's something that was a very positive aspect. I had other colleagues, and they had special software for their classes, and huge problems using that software for the students from home because they had not university access. So that's a very positive asset for MonsoonSIM. It's very, very easy accessible.
Okay, there's a new question coming up for you. Are using the SAP software as well as in class? SAP?
So not me. So a colleague of me is using SAP. I think we are also SAP Star Alliance partner or something like that. They do not use that ERP SIM, but they use SAP for process management and apply and use SAP. Not me, but colleague does it.
All right. Okay. I'm sure that answered the question. And there's another question from Violetta. Presentation with brilliance. That is definitely, I must say yes, for sure.
Hi, Professor Oliver. Do you buy it as a per head subscriptions or institution package?
Yeah, per learner subscription.
So students are willing to pay. So I assume it's going to be affordable kind of price.
It's not the students that pay. We pay as a university for the students.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it depends on the number of learners, I think. Yeah. So at the moment, it's these 20 to 30 students, and then that's really affordable, I think. Maybe for the students, or we as a university pay for them. I'm in talks with some colleagues at my university and other bachelor programs. Maybe they will also use it, and then maybe the time comes to switch to an institution license. But I think it depends on the number of learners.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Donald, any question from your end? The contact and Professor Oliver, that is fantastic, brilliant, and thank you very much for your sharing.